I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:49, and I'll have the city clerk announce the reason of the...
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just due to the timeline of the public meeting running a little bit later than expected, the meeting was called to order at 6:30 in accordance with the procedural bylaw, at which point, by a vote of council, we moved a recess until now, so the meeting will continue from there.
Thank you, Matthew. Okay, call to order. We'll call this meeting to order, like I said, at 6:48, and call on Councillor Dividitis to read the land acknowledgement.
The city of Thorold is situated on treaty land. The land is steeped in rich history of the First Nations, such as Hatiwandagrook and Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississauga of the Credit of the First Nations. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The city of Thorold stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands in which we live.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any declarations of interest? Go ahead, Councillor Sentence.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. In consent reports, 11.15, EWCS 69. I'm on the board.
Thank you. It's duly noted. Anything else? Seeing none, adoption of the agenda, noting that the closed section item, confidential CWCD 160-2023, is relevant to the consideration of two other items on the agenda. CLK 7-2023, respecting the Code of Conduct Compliant Report, Agenda Item 12.6, and the motion respecting the Code of Conduct and Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Agenda Item 14.2. These two items will be considered after closed session. Can I get a mover and a second to adopt the agenda as amended? Mover, Councillor DeAngelo, seconder, Councillor O'Hare. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Mayor's report. On June 1st, Deputy Mayor DeRose, Councillors O'Hare and Dividitis, along with city staff, were present to welcome two deserving Habitat for Humanity Niagara families to their new homes in the city of Thorold. Congratulations and thank you, Habitat and your community partners, for making this initiative possible. Thanks for helping to build stronger communities as we work together to build more homes for families across the Niagara region. June 10th was Mountain View Lemonade Day, Kids Helping Kids, a FACTS Niagara fundraiser. Our Thorold community did not disappoint and did their part to make this day a success. Thank you to Deputy Mayor DeRose, Councillors Decker, Dividitis, Sentence, and O'Hare for your support in visiting various lemonade stands locations throughout the city. All the proceeds from the Mountain View Lemonade Day fundraising initiative go towards sending FACTS Niagara kids to camp this summer. June 12th was the annual Runway of Recognition induction ceremony and dinner. Thank you, Councillor Decker, for assisting Regional Councillor Whalen during the award presentations, and Deputy Mayor DeRose for bringing closing remarks. Also, thank you to all councillors who attended this event. This annual induction ceremony dinner is always an important and highly anticipated event on our yearly calendar. Once again, congratulations to all those who were inducted into the Runway of Recognition or won awards that evening. The Thorold Garden Club was pleased to host their annual Rose and Flower Show at the Senior Center on Saturday, June 17th. I was in attendance to choose the Mayor's Choice Award, which will be presented in September. Councillor O'Hare was also in attendance. The floral displays were amazing as usual. The second annual Thorold Garden Contest will run from July 3rd to September 5th. More information will be available soon. Thank you to the Thorold Garden Club and your executive, led by President Leslie Daniels, for your great contributions to our community. 94 years strong. That group's been going for 94 years. Our active transportation subcommittee partnered with Heart Niagara to provide free cycle and wheel safety training to grade 4 and 5 students at Richmond Street Public School, Prince of Wales Public School, and Our Lady of the Holy Rosary Catholic Elementary School. The skills taught at these sessions support students in making healthy and active choices, as well as prepare them to safely navigate our neighborhoods when they're out for a ride with friends or family. Splash pads located in the City of Thorold Parks opened for the season on June 2nd. The Thorold Community Pool and its on-site splash pad open on June 16th. There are 6 splash pads in the city that residents can enjoy, including 5 splash pads located in community parks and 1 located at the Thorold Community Pool. June is National Indigenous History Month in Canada. This month provides an opportunity to learn about unique cultures, traditions, and experiences of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. Tomorrow, June 21st, is National Indigenous Peoples Day. For generations, many Indigenous groups and communities have celebrated their culture and heritage on June 21st or around that time of year because of the significance of the summer solstice as the longest day of the year. Consider attending one of the upcoming events planned right here in our backyard at Thorold's Indigenous Unity Garden. The events are made possible through a collaborative effort between the City of Thorold, One Thorold, and Kakalaniks. The partnership reflects a commitment to reconciliation with Indigenous peoples and showcases the city's dedication to celebrating and honoring Indigenous culture in our daily lives. For more information, please visit www.thorold.ca Indigenous Unity Garden. This Saturday, June 24th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., there is a summer solstice workshop at the Indigenous Unity Garden in the Mel Swart Conservation Park. And this will be, I think, the 3rd event so far since the Unity Garden has opened. Seniors Month is well underway, and the City of Thorold is kicking off a new program called Thorold Seniors, a year for health, community, and connection, designed to increase the sense of connection and belonging amongst older adults in Thorold. Our age-friendly committee, TCAG, and the Thorold Public Library have partnered on this initiative to facilitate a series of new activities, seminars, classes, and social events aimed at engaging older adults in the community, encouraging inclusion, social and multi-generational participation, as well as reducing social isolation. Thorold's new program is funded through the Government of Canada's New Horizons for Seniors program, which provides funding for projects that make a difference in the lives of seniors and in their communities. For more information, visit www.thoroldgroup.org/older adults. The City of Thorold will host its annual Canada Day Rock and Blues on the Battlefields community celebration on July 1st and 2nd in the Battle of Beaver Dams Park. A full slate of activities both days includes family-friendly activities, local food and drink, magic shows, fireworks, and live rock and blues music. This is a free admission community event. Today we raise the Italian flag at City Hall to celebrate Italian Heritage Month in Canada, which is an opportunity to celebrate the rich cultural heritage and impact of Italian Canadians in our country. There are more than 1.5 million people of Italian heritage in Canada, and many here in the City of Thorold. Councillors O'Hare, Sentence, Dividitis, and Regional Councillor Whalen were in attendance, as well as executive members from Club Capri and city staff. In closing, the Thorold Community Market heads into week 3 this week and will run every Wednesday throughout the summer from 5 to 9 p.m. in the Battle of Beaver Dams Park. This week, the Thorold Reed Band begins its weekly Wednesday evening summer series starting at 7:30 in the band shell. The Thorold Reed Band is Canada's oldest continuous running band of any kind, established in 1851. And that's the end of my mayor's report. And now we'll move on to presentations. Our first request of Thorold Legion directional signage has been withdrawn from tonight and will be brought to a future council meeting. Up second is the Thorold Municipal Nonprofit Housing announcement, and I'll call on John Kenny, Thorold Municipal Nonprofit Housing, for an announcement from the board. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Thorold Municipal Nonprofit Housing is pleased to inform you that the construction phase for 5 Baker Street has started. Site work and mobilization on the site began in May. Emilio Raimondo is the architect, and primary consultant Tim Walsh Consulting as affordable housing development consultant. Nyakon is doing the construction as the manager and are working with the nonprofit corporation to build 60 units of seniors housing. The project applied for and successfully received $4.5 million, just over $4.5 million from the Small Communities Fund, a federal and provincial fund administered by the Ministry of Infrastructure to encourage the development of affordable housing on this brownfield site. The project was also funded by National Housing Co-Investment Fund with a low-interest repayable loan of close to $15 million. This is part of the federal government's national housing strategy. The nonprofit is providing $1.5 million of our own equity to the project. All due diligence has been completed in the remediation of the testing of the soils on the site, and Soil Matt, as soils engineer, are continuing to work on the site because we're still moving dirt, and they're testing it regularly. All work is being undertaken to meet due diligence requirements by the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation as a primary lender. Niagara Regional Housing is a partner on the project, and they will provide subsidy to 15 of the 60 units. There'll be 31 bedroom and 32 bedroom. Occupancy for the project is for the end of next year. A ceremony to turn sod on the project with all the partners on the project is in the process of being scheduled with the media to be invited. And that's about it. There's our building there. A lot of work by the Committee of 7 over the past few years, and hopefully the good part about it is if 60 seniors from Thorold or the area move in there, that's going to open up 60 homes for younger people in Thorold to hopefully buy their homes and move into. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and I'll open the floor for questions. Go ahead, Councillor Sentence. And Councillor Sentence and Councillor Dividitis both are representatives on the
Yes, I should have mentioned that, sorry.
Housing Board. So go ahead, Councillor Sentence.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to say, I came in this late. I just want to say congratulations to past councils and councillors and boards. I did not realize how frustrating it is to work through 3 tiers of government to try and get this done. It was frustrating, and you almost feel like quitting at times. So good work to everybody, and good work to you guys. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Dividitis.
I just want to say, through you, Mr. Mayor, I feel very privileged to have joined the Thorold Nonprofit Housing with Councillor Sentence. It's an amazing group of people working hard and providing an affordable place to call home. This project would not have been possible without John Kenny. The work that he's put into this is amazing. John and Eddie Pizzo Sr., dedication, leadership, and commitment has been outstanding. And I've been on jobs building 60 units, 40 units, and it's a lot of work, but the difference is I'm getting paid, and these guys aren't. And what they've done is amazing.
Thank you, Councillor Dividitis. Is there
Well,
anyone?
he mentioned my name, so I have to mention the rest of the board's names now.
Yes, I think that would be
George
good.
Revenek, Sergio Carpino, Payon, I'm sorry, Serge Payon, Don Dolby, and Sebastian Socho Marandola. They're on the committee, and everybody worked hard on that committee. It wasn't just myself.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Long.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations, John. Great job. Just a few questions because people will be asking. So you mentioned Niagara Regional Housing's partnering with 15 units. Is it 15 affordable units and then 45 market rent units? Is that the way it works?
No, there'll be 30 of each.
30 of each, okay.
The one bedroom will be the RGIs, and the market will be the two bedroom. We have to be able to, as you know, we have to be able to cover the mortgage, so that's,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do understand that, but I want people to understand how it works. So RGI, that means rent geared to income?
correct.
So I guess my other question is, because now people are going to ask, how do you get in the building? How do you become a tenant? What's your process? What's the plan of the board?
Well, we have a list there to work off, and it'll be done that way. The region has control of 15 of their units that'll come off their list. We're hoping to get people from Thorold in there. I'm talking people from Thorold. I'm talking people that have been in Thorold for many years. I know some of the seniors had to move away because there was no housing. I know their names are on the list. They're still considered from Thorold.
Okay, great. And I guess a final question is for people who are just learning about this and want to be on a list. Is there somebody they can contact?
61 Ormond. There's an office.
Okay, thank you.
There's also a phone number. If you look on the Thorold Municipal Nonprofit Housing, there is a office phone number there they can call.
Correct, but they'll be asking some information, so it's probably best if they went there.
Went right there. Okay, yeah. Go ahead, Councillor O'Hare, and then Councillor Hanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to John and the whole committee, congratulations. This is a great news story. We've been waiting to hear about housing for seniors in Thorold for a while now, and I know I've heard it many, many times, so it's really great to see something reaching this stage. Well done to all of you. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Hanlon.
Also, great work by all. Councillor Longo brought up about, the residents and when they be available. Through the region, it seems to be that there could be anywhere from a 5 to 7 year waiting list for affordable housing. Would that be accurate? That's what they say, is like to put your name on the list, 5 to 7 years?
I couldn't answer that. We're not involved in filling the places, so I don't know how long people have had their name on the list.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else that has any questions for John? Go ahead, Councillor Sentence.
I'll open it up for him. What's next?
So as soon as we get this going, and the city's got some land for us to build on, we'll get the funding. Maybe St. Charles School. Keep it open for us.
Anyone else? Okay, thanks so much, John, and thanks for the whole board and the work he's doing. It's much appreciated.
I'd like to thank the council and the mayor for the confidence in voting us on the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Habitat for Humanity permit fee assistance request, and I'll call on Mark Carl, Chief Executive Officer of Habitat for Humanity Niagara, for his presentation. And welcome once again, Mark.
Thank you.
It's becoming a habit.
It is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for your council and the city staff support of Habitat for Humanity Niagara. And as we're building in Thorold, as you're aware, and for many of you, Vice Mayor Rose, thank you for coming out to our home dedication that saw 2 families move into new homes and affordable homes in Thorold. They're excited. I can report that Mavis and Mavis's families moved in, and they talked about the peace that they feel and how calm and it is how calm and how quiet the area is and how peaceful and safe they feel. So thank you very much. I talked to both of them the other day, and they said that both families said how safe and peaceful and no stress that they have. So, and I'd like to just, if I take a moment, To the Thorold Municipal Not-for-Profit Housing, I want to congratulate you and your board on the achievement of a 60-unit seniors apartment. That's no small feat, as we were just talking about, to get through 3 layers of government, and I think that's going to make a really big impact in Thorold. So congratulations on your hard work and dedication and your commitment to affordable housing, and it's dear to us, and we support you however we can. So congratulations for that. So as you know, we are building, we have Abdu and May and family moving into a 3rd house. We're going to be inviting council and staff out to help us build that 3rd house coming up on Mary Street. And then we also will be building this year 2 more homes on Taylor Street in Thorold as well too. And we are looking at 3 to 4 more homes in the area as well too. And we're thinking maybe next year we may be changing up our schedule a little bit to serve more in Thorold. We're having great results and families really want to live in the area as well too. So thank you. So purpose of being here is often for Habitat, we often will make requests. We pay, there's permit fees, and our job is to bring the community together and help us build these houses. And what happens when we build these houses is the community comes together. The more money we save on each unit that we build, the more homes we can build. The more land we can purchase, the more homes that we can build for Niagara families, Thorold families. So we always ask our community, whether it's electricians, drywallers, if they come together and they help us, our community comes and volunteers, paints houses and everything. So as you're aware, there is in many municipalities and stuff, there's permit fees that get waived, there's development fees that get waived as well. And one of them here is that I'm just here to ask, as we move forward and build the next 2 houses on Thorold, on Taylor Road, Taylor Street in Thorold, if it's possible, if council finds it on their heart, if they find it easy to do, I know it's not easy to do, we would just ask that the permits be waived for the fees for that semi. Mary Street, most municipalities, we did meet with the mayor and the city staff. And in here in Thorold, to get the fees waived, it's something that we have to come and make a presentation to council, and it's up to council at that time if they want to waive the fees. So we are fine. Mary Street's been built. We paid the permit fees on that. We applied to the region did waive the fees, and I'm just here asking that if city council could help us out in waiving the permit fees for the 2 homes on Taylor Street, that would go a long way to helping us build more affordable housing and continue your support. So that is all, Mr. Mayor. I do want to say that the experience being here in Thorold, building affordable homes that families can afford and helping the community has been wonderful. And we're asking this. It's not necessary. You don't have to do it as a council. It's not something that this community has to do, but it's something that would help us build more homes, affordable housing here in Thorold and Niagara. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mark, and you want to stay there because I'm sure there'll be some questions from our council and Councillor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Mark. Just a quick question. Are the development charges waived on this property right now? Or is it just the build permit fees that you're looking for some relief?
Yeah, it's a building permit fees from the town of Thorold that we would be looking for some fees. And I think we can answer more questions and get more of the details.
Jason, do you want to chime in on that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it is the development charges that this project has been exempted from through the region. Unfortunately, the City of Thorold's development charge bylaw doesn't provide that same exemption, given that these projects are not owned and operated by Habitat for Humanity. They are actually sold to the individuals. So I guess we're looking for clarification from the presenter if they're seeking relief from development charges from council, similar to what the region has done, or building permit fees. There are a number of different fees associated with obtaining a permit. It's only development charges that have been waived by the region at this time. So I guess if we could get a little clarification on that.
So I apologize, council. I may misanswered that. So we are looking for the development fees to be waived. That's from the City of Thorold.
Okay, and go ahead.
Well, I know there's other questions, but at the appropriate time, I'd like to put a motion on the floor that we direct this to staff to come back and have some discussion with Mr. Carl, just to make sure we cover exactly what they're looking for and the implications from the city perspective, and have a report come back to council.
I think that's a prudent thing to do, and I'll come back to you at that time. I think, but in the meantime, is there any further questions from to Mark, and then we'll deal with that. Okay, are there any further questions? Seeing none, okay, Councillor DeAngelo, go ahead.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to put a motion on the floor that we refer this to staff to come back with a staff report regarding the consideration of the items that are being requested by Mr. Carl and Habitat for Humanity. And if there's, that's the motion, but if there could be any clarity, maybe through discussions with staff, so we do capture what you're looking for reduction or removal, and then this way we can have that come back in a staff report to determine
Absolutely.
the impacts, if it's possible, the legislation and all that, so that we can see what we can do to help out Habitat for Humanity.
Okay, so that's the motion. I need a seconder. Councillor O'Hare, any discussion on that? I think it's very clear. And Mark, you can work with Jason and clarify exactly so that when the report comes back, it's highlighting exactly what your ask is.
Yeah,
Okay?
and if I could say to the, oh, I guess you can vote, I don't want to speak to your motion. But I would say we're great with that. That's exactly what we would need, because we need to work with staff to get everything clarified, what could be waived.
Thank you. So we have that motion. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried.
Perfect.
Okay, so thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to items for consent. Can I get a mover and a seconder for all the items, and then we'll see if any want to be pulled. I got a mover, Councillor Sentence, and a seconder, Councillor Longo. Okay. So I want to know now what items, if anyone wants to pull any items, can I please get the list on what those items are, and then we'll take the rest of them as a block. Go ahead, Councillor DeAngelo.
Just going down my list, but 11.3, 11.5. I might have a few more. I'm just going down my list, but you can take requests from the other councillors for the time being.
Anyone else have items to pull? Go ahead, Councillor Hanley.
Item 11.4, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Also one.
Okay. I've got 11.3, 11.4, and 11.5. Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
11:15, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. 11:15. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor DeAngelo.
Can I move 11.9 for discussion?
Yes, you can. Okay.
And also 11.6.
Okay. Okay, so I had a mover and a seconder, Councillor Sentence and Longo. Right now, we're gonna take 11.1, 11.2, 11.7, 11.8, 11.10, 11.11, 11.12, 11.13, 11.14, and 11.16. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So now we're gonna start with 11.3, DF 9, 2022 financial summary, and Councillor DeAngelo, you pulled that, so go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, there's, on Appendix 4, it just talks about donations, and Mel Swart Park is highlighted there for donations in 2022. I know I was working with the park staff. There was a placard that had fallen down, and not Public Works, but park staff had repaired it, put it back up, and also made sure the other ones were okay. But one of the items that came forward was that there's been some donations for the Mel Swart Park that have been done in the past that haven't been put on there. And I know the parks staff are looking into how to engrave it onto it, or if they have to do a new one. But what I was concerned about, because it was brought to my attention from a citizen, is to make sure that we have everyone's donations that need to go up onto that plaque. So I'm looking through, maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, to finance. What's the proper procedure there? Like, is someone in charge of making sure we have those correct names? Is it someone from the committee? I'm just looking for a bit of direction on that.
I don't know. Maria, are you the person to ask?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, the actual, in finance, we collect the funds. However, the actual inscriptions and such are done by the Community Services Department.
Yeah, that I understand, the community services, but I guess when I was talking to them, they weren't fully sure who needs to go up on the placard. So is that information they would get from the finance department, from the terms of
So
donations?
who do we, so the question, I think, is, we get these donations, they gotta be logged, we know who gave them, and then community services can do the plaque. How do we get that communication between knowing we got this money and getting the name up?
Through Mr. Mayor, there is, normally, it actually goes the other way around. We receive the checks from community services. So by the time it gets to us, they should be aware that the funds have come in.
Okay,
You know,
so
if
do we have-
there is a breakdown in communication, we can work to rectify it and make sure the flow's going both ways, but that normally has been the process historically.
Dave, can you work on that? Okay, to address that?
Yeah, that's fine, Mr. Mayor, just, because I know there's been some staff changes at times. We just
Yep.
want to make sure that
Yep.
those
No,
that are
it's a good
duly
question.
donating are getting recognition on that. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll leave that in Mr. Baldoni's hands then.
Okay, so.
Thank you.
I got a mover and a seconder, Counselor Sentence and Longo for 11-3. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Now we're gonna go to 11-4, and that is PWCS 63-2023, Pride Flagpole, and Counselor Hanley, you pulled this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just some questions. In regards to the flagpole, I just have some concerns. Will this, if I could ask through you to the appropriate staff member, will this be a city-owned flagpole or a privately owned flagpole?
Jeff, are you gonna handle that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it'll be owned by the municipality.
Thank you. Will the pole be exclusively just to fly the pride flag year-round?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that can be the direction of council.
I ask because in the report, it doesn't really say, it just says that it'd be amended to include a pride flagpole at the Battle of Beaver Dams Park. I have no objection with that. My concern is this pole going to be exclusively for a flagpole? My concern would be, Mr. Mayor, if I could ask the appropriate staff member, if this was a case, could this be considered as bonusing under the Municipal Act? Because we're purchasing with taxpayers' funds a specific product, and we're only allowing one exclusive group to display their wares on that. So it's be like when we done the flags in downtown Thorold, just to give you an example, Mr. Mayor, this is my concern. If you remember, we also had to do it in Port Robinson because of their business district, because just doing it in one section of Thorold would be considered bonusing, they call it under the Municipal Act.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is not bonusing. This is just a recognition of a portion of our community, very much like the flags that we have for the Indigenous community at Nelsford Park and other locations.
Okay, my concern is this, if I could, and I'm not against it, is that if we allow this, and now another faction comes and they wish to have the city purchase them a pole so they can fly a flag exclusively for them, does the policy include that? Because I don't want to get us in a predicament of discrimination. Because if we're allowing one factor, and again, I have nothing, I'm all for it, but not specifically with taxpayers' money to be flown year-round. Because then, my concern is this: if another group comes to the city, we have no alternative but to accept their proposal and the city to pay 50% of the flagpole.
And I'll ask the city clerk to speak to that.
So, Mr. Mayor, just through you to council would be what council previously approved was this to be a pride flagpole in principle. This was approved, so nothing has been set yet. No policy is in place yet. Even if it were set to fly the one flag year-round, that wouldn't necessarily set any policy for the city. Each individual request, should further requests come forward, would come to council in a similar way and be judged and considered by council based on its merit and the desires of the council of the day.
I appreciate it, and that's a great answer, because now we need to know through a policy, a flag raising policy, what determines merit? See, because if we're gonna amend the flag raising policy, so then what determines merit? Who can come and request to the city to do the same? I don't mean a big discussion, I'm just trying to be fair across the board, because you have to remember, we have First Nations, we have Six Nations, we have the Métis, we have All Lives Matters, we have the Black Lives Matters. So we may be getting ourselves into an area here where we're gonna have 20 requests. So what would merit allowing one and not the other, where it may come to discrimination? And I believe no one in this room can answer it except someone legally. Just my opinion. We don't have the expertise to know whether or not what we're doing and what deserves merit, if you understand where I'm coming from with other groups. Because I would hate to be the guy coming here and someone else comes and we say, we turn you down, and we need to have a policy as to what would be acceptable and what would not be acceptable. So if someone wants to defer it until we get an actual legal opinion as to what road we're going down, that's my concern. I got no other questions.
Thank you. Councillor Hanley, I had Councillor O'Hare had his hand up next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'm going to respond as a member of council on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And I'll be very honest and say I'm extremely proud of the diversity and equity and inclusion that we already embrace here in Thorold. And I want to continue to see that grows. And I think perhaps this is something that the committee can work on a little bit, but I do not want to stop any group that has deserved the right to be represented to have that taken away. And there are many groups throughout Thorold that I would strongly support and wish to continue supporting. So
I just want to make something clear, Mr. Mayor. I'm not aiming to take anything away, Councillor Hare. I said I have nothing wrong with the flag. My concern is flying it 12 months of the year. So don't put words in my mouth, please.
Okay, no, but
right? Just
listen,
I didn't say
you got to go through the chair.
I know,
okay?
I know.
You can't
through you,
answer
Mr. Mayor. I know. Through you,
have
Mr.
to
Mayor.
go through the chair.
Okay,
okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, then that's not what I said. I had said that I am for the community and the pride flag, just not on a 12-month basis based on, as was mentioned, the merits of what's going to deem another flag to be appropriately the flag to fly in the park. That's exactly what I said.
Councillor Sentence.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I was interrupted.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry,
No,
Councillor
go ahead,
Sentence. So what I envision is a place, Battle of Beaver Dams Park, where all flags can fly, where we don't have restrictions, where we have full inclusivity, where we aren't making judgments, where we are embracing each other right across our city. So that's why I would support an initiative like this, and hopefully there will be many more to follow. Thank you.
Councillor Sentence.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support this wholeheartedly. We've asked Anthony, I think this is the third time, to come with, figure out the finances, figure out how to do this, figure out how it can be done. And if any other groups want to come forward and present something where they feel they wish to do that too, I would be open to that too. But this is a large group that is very marginalized, that we've gone through many steps to get this going. And I think this is a great thing that we can put up there to say that Thorold is open, fair, and inclusive. So I'm ready to vote on this, not defer. Thank you.
Thank you. I got Councillor Decker and then Councillor Longo after that.
Hello, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just want to thank Anthony for going out and doing everything that was asked of him by council. That's great. And I don't want to defer it either. This has been going on since last year. And I think it would be great to see his flag fly. And if anyone else wants to come forward and fly their flag, then that would be wonderful too. So I'd like to vote on it this evening as well. And thank you again to all those who helped Anthony raise all the funds for this initiative this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Decker. I had Councillor Longo. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start by saying I support the flag and the initiative for sure. But I do have some questions, because I think we need to make sure we are going in the right direction. So it's quite evident in the report that this is a Pride flagpole. So it's not for any other use, it's for Pride, which is great. They're putting money towards it, and the city's going to match it. I believe we need to have a flag policy. I believe we need to have other groups given the ability, with council approval, obviously, to do the same thing. If there is another group marginalized or whatever, they really need that ability. And without a flag pole policy, we're going to do this every time and debate it. So that's my thought on the pole and other groups. But I do have questions about the financing here. And you know me, I always ask, where's the money come from? And I'm sure the Director of Finance can tell me that we have the money for the $2,500 to put a pole up. But we are giving in perpetuity the ability to fly a Pride flag. Where do the flags come from? Who pays for the flags? And I know this sounds trivial, but it will add up over time. So does anybody have an answer on staff for that?
I'll ask Maria or Jeff if they, Jeff?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, the short answer is no. Nothing is set aside. There's no special reserve. Perhaps that's something that the committee could have a look at to see whether or not the contribution needs to be above the actual cost and set aside in some reserve for the ongoing replacement and care for it. I'm sorry, I don't know the cost of what it will cost for a flag or the replacement thereof, but
I know Pride Niagara supplies the flag when we put it up for the month, but I don't know what their policy is.
Right.
On an ongoing.
And again, Mr. Mayor, I don't want to trivialize it and sound cheap, but I'm sure the flags are expensive, and nobody wants to see a tattered, torn, or faded flag, so who's going to be responsible? And then when we allow another group to come forward, the flag policy will dictate that, who's going to be responsible. So it's fantastic that Mr. Fiore has come up with $2,500 to match the city, but we've got a cost here, and it's going to be forever if we decide to move forward here. So just some things to think about, Mr. Mayor.
Good points, and I'll ask Matthew to chime in here. Matthew, go ahead.
Yeah, my only comment, Mr. Mayor, is there is a flag raising flag protocol or policy, which does speak to the fact that if a member of the community wishes to have a flag raising for any matter, they can come forward. At present, I believe the only pole where that can be put up is at City Hall. However, it is a community flagpole that can raise any. There are restrictions on there in terms of items which would not be permitted, as well as items that are or that would be demonstrated and permitted as flag raisings for that particular pole. So the policy does already exist with certain restrictions and criteria as approved by council for what we will or will not fly, and then it goes into other definitions with regards to when we have to lower flags, for example, and the flying of other flags such as the Canada flag, provincial flag, etc.
I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor, but again, we have a flag raising policy, but we don't have a flag pole policy. I think we need to have something like that in place.
We need more details.
We need more details. We need to have a policy because we're dealing with this now, so we can move forward. There's groups that I support. I'll give you a great example, Special Olympics, okay? I'm sure I could raise $2,500. Does that mean that we'll put a flagpole in Battle Beaver Dams Park for Special Olympics and in perpetuity fly their flag? We need to make sure we don't put ourselves in that predicament, in my opinion. We need to understand how we're moving forward. So just things we need to think about. But Mr. Mayor, I do support this initiative.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Dividitis.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't want to defer this at all. Anthony, you did a great job raising this money. We asked you to do something, you did it. I think we're entitled, we have to put this pole up. And if anybody else, I agree with Tim, Mr. O'Hara, my counselor. Let's put another pole up if somebody else wants. Look at the region. They got all kinds of flags in front of the region.
Go ahead, Councillor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in supportive of moving forward with this today, but my only concern is, do we have a plan in place at the park for these flagpoles so that if there's additional ones, we're not moving them, like once we set them, they're sort of set and they don't keep moving? And how do we put them? So I'd rather make sure we have a plan in place for the park, because I would anticipate further flagpoles coming within the next year for sure. And I just don't want to be caught in a situation where you have one out and they're all spread out. They have to look, like if someone mentioned the region, they have to look somewhat uniform. They have to be in an area that, it doesn't highlight one over the other. Again, inclusion, equity. So I think you do need a plan before the pole goes up of what's going to happen in the park. I think that's critical. And then from the clerk's comments, it sort of sounds like if someone wants to fly that flag, it would be that organization's responsibility to provide the flag. And I would assume to provide it on a regular basis when they want it changed. Because if there's other groups that are out there, I don't think it should be incumbent on the city to go try to find these flags that might be difficult to find. And then also that flagpole policy will have to have some sort of recognition of when these flags come down, because nobody wants to see a tattered, ripped flag. And I know we had some flying in Thorold on some of our flagpoles, and sometimes it was costly depending on the style of pole, because you had to get a scissor lift in there. And then someone's going to complain because it's been flying half ripped for 3 months because you couldn't get a scissor lift out to the park to get on the wet soil to get it done. So those are the considerations, because I don't want this to turn into something that looks ugly later. I think it needs to make sure it conforms and moves forward. So there's some loose ends here that need to be tied up, but I think in principle, again, moving with this flagpole and others, we can do that tonight. But I think you need to clean up a couple things so that it doesn't cause problems going down the road. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So basically, we're giving staff direction to come up with a more wholesome plan moving forward. As far as if there are more poles, how would they be situated? And as far as items like the replacement of the flags, who's going to be responsible to, I think those are fair questions that need definitive answers. So, any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Hand.
Well, the comment, just as my point was at the beginning, Mr. Mayor, was we need to have a plan. And if the one pole's already, if I understand, it's already in the process of being erected or is erected. Do we know? Because if we've already erected the one, then we need to make our plan surrounding where that flag is. So as Councillor D'Angelo says, they're not all over the park.
Mr. Mayor, the pole has been purchased, is ready for installation.
So as a little friendly amendment, we'll approve it tonight, but the installation of the flagpole maybe after we have a more comprehensive review to where we're going to place them, on the anticipation that there's going to be more than one flagpole. As Councillor Didovaitis said, you look in front of the region, there's like 12 or 13 of them.
Go ahead, Councillor Simmons.
Well, I think to that point, we already have a spot for this, right? Like we have a plan where this is going to go. And I believe as far as replacement, I think Anthony's told us on several occasions, it's not a problem for him to get replacement flags for this as well. So just a couple points of interest.
Okay. And is that correct that we do have a place for this? And then, but I guess the bigger question is, will we have, is there a place in that area that will be able to grow?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, staff have been working on the direction that they've been given by council to add another flagpole to Battle of Beaver Dams Park. And the process will probably follow the exact same process. If we do have another request, then the council can determine where the pole gets located. And they have the council has the ability to add or delete items to any of our community parks, and they have the discretion to determine where it goes. Do we put them all at Battle of Beaver Dams Park? I don't know. That can be a decision at the time. For staff to come back with a policy that says we need more flags in this park, I think maybe not the best way to handle it, but You know, it depends on the requester and the business plan that they're proposing. And we can deal with them, you know, as a one-off.
It's like
I'm not expecting we're going to have everybody wanting to locate a flagpole. And it may not be appropriate to have, you know, 10 or 12 flagpoles on one property.
No, and right now at the DQ House Heritage Park, we fly 3 different flags there, as an example. Right, so there's a location where we have done that already. You know. Any further discussion on this? Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we're assuming that this is for the whole year. Is that correct, Mr. Holman?
Through Mr. Mayor, this can be your decision. Okay? Council directed us to...
I support this 100% in principle. Great to see one of my former favorite students, Anthony, here tonight. We had a nice conversation today. See, my issue is I support it in principle, but I don't know about the whole year. I've talked to a lot of people, and I've got 6 pages here of important and commemorative days in Canada. So what I'm saying is, if there's only going to be one flagpole presently, there should be options for others to approach the city, and you know what I'm saying? But if you put that up for the whole year, I think the only flag that should be up all year is the Canadian flag. Symbolizes acceptance, inclusion, and equality for all. But that's just my opinion. But I do support it. I will support it in principle. I just need clarification if it's the whole year or what council wants to decide, because I think it should be for certain parts of the year. Because I think it also diminishes its appeal when it's all year. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Is there anyone further that wants to? Go ahead, Councillor Dan.
Yeah, my only concern is, through hearing some discussion here, is that every time a flagpole comes here, there'll be a discussion of where it goes. I as a councillor, I don't really envision that as being a very productive and moving forward concept. If these poles are going to be placed, I would like to see them placed in the Battle of Beaver Dams. That's it's historic, centralized, and one of the most popular parks utilized by not just the residents of Thorold, but also the public that comes for events. So that would be the prime location. So I would suggest that it's given some more thought in how they're going to be arranged. Anticipate another 10 poles within the next year, because I think you'll see that, knowing that it's an option for organizations to come forward. So I'd rather have that sort of thought out. I don't want to delay the one that's being put up, but I still think you need to put a little bit more thought into it, as opposed to, unless someone requests they want to go to Port Robinson, or if they want to go to Allenburg Community Center, if they do request that, well, then that's something that'll be an anomaly. But I think the Battle of Beaver Dams Park, for a lot of flags, that's where they would want to go. So I would just caution not having a bit of a plan in place for additional poles.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I have a mover and a seconder, Councillor Sentence, Councillor Longo, and this is regarding 11-4. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. PWCS 65-2023, Regent Street parking. And Councillor DeAngelo, did you pull this one?
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to be clear, because I was reading the report, and it talks about the installation of 4 parking signs. But the recommendation is to restrict the parking. So would those, just for my own clarity, would that be no parking signs?
My understanding that's what it is, but again, I'll call on Sean Dunsmore, Manager Engineering's here.
Through you, Mayor, that's correct.
Oh, okay.
It would be no
Thank you.
parking.
Just want to be clear. And I know there was another recommendation that was suggested, but it's being recommended to move to the budget. I'm okay with that, to look at that budget time. It's really important that those no parking signs are there, because it is a narrow street, very congested, and I can see why citizens have an issue if they're trying to back out. And like I said at our Transportation Safety Committee meeting, that I'm surprised why people park there, because the propensity, The odds of being hit by a baseball are very high in those locations. So I would not park there if you have a nice vehicle, because the homes get hit, let alone the vehicles that park there. So if no parking signs go up there, I think that's a great step in the right direction, and we can look at a further thing as we move into the future.
Thank you. Any further questions regarding that? Seeing none, same mover and a seconder, all those in, oh, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, this is just for the general public, because I had an individual contact me about parking restrictions on a side street. In this case, it was McDonald Avenue. Maybe if we could just outline what people need to do if they want us as a council to look at parking restrictions on a street, like sometimes there's parking only on half side. Maybe if Mr. Dunsmore could just highlight that in a brief, just so the general public has a good understanding what they need to do.
Can you just, yeah, there is a process, and if you want to spell it out, that would be.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the process is generally a petition signed by at least 50% of the affected area. What we've had in the past is some difficulty getting one side or the other for parking restrictions. So what we'd like to see is a good group of people coming forward with the restriction request. We will then have a public meeting so that we can hear everybody's opinion on that, and then we'll bring that to council.
Okay, so if the individual so chooses to want to look at that, then they're responsible to get the petition signed with around 50%.
There is one other thing, though. If it's in an area where it's a severe safety concern, then we can move right away to getting staff involved and do a safety study. Am I correct when I say that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, there's very few safety issues
I know, but it
around.
does happen.
Okay.
And the other option, I guess, is a direction from council directly. So.
Okay. All right, well, I'll give this information back to the individual, and if I get contacted again, I could at least give them an understanding what they need to do to start the ball rolling if they're so inclined.
Okay, so 11-5. I had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. 11-6.
Mr. Mayor, I threw this one on, but it's self-explanatory. I'll wait till the report comes. I do have some questions, but I'll direct them to staff in advance so that they would be included in the report.
Okay, thank you. So 11-6 is done. Oh, I need a mover and we got the same mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. I've got 11-9. CLKC 61-2023. I don't know who pulled this. I can't remember.
That was me. That was me, Mr. Mayor. The reason I pulled this one is I just had a quick question. Do we, because they're looking for potentially a vending machine. Do we have a city policy regarding vending machines on city property?
Good question. Do we?
I don't believe so, Mr. Mayor.
But that I couldn't answer, so that would have to be considered as part of.
Okay.
Part of that.
Since we don't have that policy, then I'll wait for the report to come forward regarding this, and then as part of the process to look not only at this, but policy that would encompass all city properties, because we may have other opportunities.
That's correct. Okay. So I had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. I got PWCS 69-2023 volleyball court project, TCAG, and Councillor Longo. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple quick questions on this one. That is a city-owned park?
That is, my understanding is that that's a city-owned property there, is it not? Go ahead, Dave. My understanding it is, but I'll let Dave clarify.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Longo. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, for the volleyball courts that they want to install at the Thorold Community Activity Group, is that city-owned parkland?
That's correct, that is.
Okay, and they're going to remove bocce courts, that's correct?
Correct.
Okay, we're going to retain ownership of the land?
Yes.
Okay, great. And the Thorold Community Activity Group will be paying in its entirety the work that needs to be done?
That's correct.
Okay. And if they ever stop using it, will they have to revert it back to the condition it was in, or we're not too worried about that?
That would be a direction with their agreement.
Okay, great. And I guess my final question is, city-owned park, we own the land, they're gonna build something on it. Will anybody be able to use the volleyball courts?
From my understanding, it'll be booked through the TCAG. They'll try and control who utilizes it.
Okay, so do we know, though, if youth groups want to use it, will they be charged, or is it a city park that they can use?
I would assume it would be a city park they can use.
Okay, and probably outside of Thorold Community Activity Group programming?
Rentals. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Durrell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Dave, while you're up there, Dave, do we know how much the bocce court was being used? Was it being used extensively or not at all?
Once a year, we had a community party, a family get-together that utilized that bocce court.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to make a comment. I'm in support of this. It's a great endeavor, great idea. It's frustrating that TCAG was here during the debates on the Canada Summer Games Park, and they were saying how they were looking forward to using the gym, the volleyball courts, and to this day, I don't think they have, or very minimal. So it's kind of frustrating to see that happen. But I'm glad they are setting up. They do a great service to our community and offer. I know my kids are involved, so it's a great thing. I just wish they would have planned this out ahead of time, but it's all good. Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. I know that they do use the volleyball courts. They've rented time at Canada Games Park as well as gym time. I will tell you, when I was in Italy, do you know that they used the beach volleyball courts to play soccer? It's unbelievable. There was a tournament right across from my hotel, and they had lights and they played till 2 in the morning. And the athletic ability of the players, it was something to behold, because they use their head, chest, and feet. They only throw the ball up in the air to serve, and then the rest is head, chest, feet, and it's phenomenal to watch. Yeah. Anyways, go ahead, Councillor Long.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe we should investigate playing bocce at the Canada Games Center in the summertime, because they have grass inside on the ice surfaces. So it'd be a fantastic way to, celebrate Italian Heritage Month.
Thank you. Okay, so we have that report on, and I had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. What? Okay, so we're on to items for consideration. Up first is DF 11, 2023, benefits 2023. And before I get to report on the floor, can I get a mover and a seconder for that report? I got a mover, Councillor Dividitis, seconder, Councillor Sentence, and I'll leave that to our Director of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendations are that council approve the benefits renewal proposal from Mosey & Mosey at a cost as outlined in Appendix 1 to provide benefits coverage to employees effective June 1st, 2023. And secondly, that council approve a general budget adjustment of $10,256 to cover the differential. And this concludes the report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our Director of Finance? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. PWCS 58, 2023, Lakeview Cemetery Administration Building Project. I need a mover and seconder before I put this on the floor. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor O'Hare and Councillor Dividitis, and I'll turn this over to Jeff Holman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that staff be directed to prepare the documents for the Lakeview Cemetery Administration Building Renovation Project for public tender, and 2, that the funding strategy be included in the tender award report recommendations.
Okay, and I'll open the floor for questions. Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just had a quick question. How much Jeff, can you tell us exactly, I don't have, my computer's not working, what was the total for the design? The total for the design through, the design part of it. Can you just give us a rough idea? I know it was between 50 and 80,000.
Through Mr. Mayor, I believe it's included in one of the attachments.
Yeah, I just don't have it available. But anyway, could you, are you able to bring it up, Matthew? Because I just want to know if that's the comprehensive amount of work that was done for that amount of money. Right. Can we just get it on the slides, please?
Appendix 4.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, our architect was Raimondo and Associates Architects, Inc., and we awarded them the design portion of the project for $49,500 plus HST. That's recommendation number 1.
Now, is it just the design, like with the pictures that we were sent? That's what I'm asking. So the pictures we were sent, I wish you can get them up there. There was 6 or 7 pictures. Is that basically what they did, or is there more in-depth detailed plans that we aren't privy to?
Go ahead, Councillor Long.
If I could maybe help Councillor DeRose have access so I can. Appendix 1 shows from the architect some renderings. Is that the that's not the design? I take it that he's going to do much more based on the price of $49,000? Appendix 1.
Yes, yes, that's correct. Councilor Longo, these are the drawings that will be used to be eventually submitted for building permit if the project's to proceed. There may be some additional schedules, there may be some additional details that need to be added, but generally speaking, this is what we asked for when we hired Raimondo and Associates to do the detailed design.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, I just, this is very troubling in the fact that we're going to be spending $1 million to fix this building when the whole new mausoleum is going to cost $2.5 million. I just think it's a terrible waste of taxpayers' money. I just had a quick question. I know they had some water damage and mold, what have you. I know the building closed about a year ago. Is that correct? Over a year ago? And I just want to know, how long were they aware of this water damage that was entering the building? Because to me, as a taxpayer whose tax bill went up, like everybody else's, even though it was the region, not us, it's frustrating to know that we're spending $1 million to fix up a building that, to me, was physically in good shape. And so I don't support spending this money on this, honestly, I don't. And but I'm just curious how long it took for us to realize there was a leak in the roof, and that was basically the crux of the issues.
Go ahead. Do you want Dave to speak on this?
Well, if I can kind of frame my answer a little bit through you, Mr. Mayor. During COVID, this building is barely used as a result of not being open to the public. So access to and from the building from time to time was on an as-needed basis. Yes, when we found the mold, it's not fresh mold. The mold's been there for quite some time. There's been a leak in the roof for quite some time. The fire panel's been compromised for quite some time. We did try to clean it up, put a fresh coat of paint on. However, we hired Ontario Environmental to come in and do a proper assessment because we're concerned about having our staff work in this environment. Their analysis, 48 or 90-page study, recommends that we move immediately to remediate the contamination. So in the interest of the safety of our staff and in our efforts to clean up the administration building and make it what was recommended in our cemetery service delivery review, the recommendation was made accordingly. Should we have caught it earlier? Yeah, probably 10 years earlier or 15 years earlier, because deterioration of the building, once it starts to go, it'll go quickly.
Thank you, Jeff. I just feel that this all could have been done. If someone like Paul Davis would have went in there, less than 100,000, it would have been done, and now we're up to $1 million. So I just have an issue with that. Thank you.
Thank you. I had Councillor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just looking at the design of it, I know it's, well, anytime we spend money, it's expensive, but I think it's critical we move forward with this project. We have a mausoleum that's coming forward. We're going to need to sell mausoleum crypts to substantiate that. There's a demand out there. This is one of the items that citizens talk to me on a constant basis. There is concerns with sometimes some of the issues that are going on in the current mausoleum, you know, flies, other items that need to be addressed. And if we have staff out on site more regularly, I know we have a temporary trailer right now, so we have to move forward with a fix here. This design looks quite reasonable. It has some good amenities. I'm looking at pictures. It's going to be ADA accessibility available. I think the current building didn't have that, if I'm not mistaken. So I think this is important for our cemetery, not only for the admin staff there, but it looks like the outside workers get to utilize this. There's a meeting room there. And we haven't been utilizing that, so I don't think we've been taking advantage of efficiency out at the cemetery. So this building is going to cost a bit of money, but I think it's going to add to some efficiencies, add to better customer service. We're going to have citizens out there. My question, one of the questions is, going through this, like, when do you anticipate the doors being open in this new facility, and how does that line up with the timeline of the mausoleum being opened with the expansion?
Thank you. Councillor O'Hare, did you have your hand up? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I think we're expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 months for construction. So if we are to start the summer, we might be in a position by Mother's Day to have the administration building. I would think that the mausoleum proposal would be something that would be dealt with in the 2024 capital budget. We have some preliminary concept designs, and the next step would be similar to this one. If we are comfortable with the cost estimates, that we go out to the market and find out what those prices, what the costs for construction will be. But both are critical, I think, in my opinion, to the success of the cemetery and moving towards our net zero operating goal. We need to have product to sell, and we need to do it in a professional way that is consistent with the type of service that needs to be provided there in the funeral industry.
Excellent, thank you. So if we're anticipating trying to get in there next summer as an administrative building, I would try to push the mausoleum project forward as fast as you can. I know it's going to be funded in 2024, but any work that can be done leading up to that, so we're in a good position to get that going right away in 2024 is beneficial. Something the community needs. We don't have the crypts that the demand is there. So it's important, and this will just help facilitate easier availability for the residents to come to the site, be able to have a good building to come to, and then move forward with the ability to see what's going to be presented from a mausoleum standpoint. So I know it's a lot of money, but it's two things that we need in this community that people have been asking for. So I think we need to move on this, and then I think we need to move as quickly as possible on the mausoleum. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor DeAngelo. Councillor O'Hare, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Holman. First, I also agree with Councillor D'Angelo that this is important. We have to continue moving forward with the reconstruction. This is really an important building, as Mr. Holman said, in our net zero operating goal. We can't really pursue that all that well without a really strong facility to work from. Now, my question is related to the estimate report that HC provided to the city of Thorold, and that's where this figure of $900,000 comes from. When I've gone through it, I realize that it seems to me as if it's a complete gut job. Everything out, everything new in. So I'm wondering, when I looked at some of the items, I'm just wondering, does the entire electrical need to be redone? Is all the lighting defunct? So I know we want a great looking building, but is some of that infrastructure there that we can already be utilizing to bring down the cost? So when this gets put out to tender, I mean, if I was a business in the construction business and receive this, it'd be wonderful, because I'd charge $990,000 to do this work. But are we going to be putting it out to tender and having a company come in and look at perhaps what was suggested and what they can do, what can be kept, what needs to be replaced? I know there are things that need to be torn out. I know there is mold that has to be dealt with, but there might be other areas of the facility that can be retained and can be worked around. So that is the direction of my question is, will some of these tendered persons come in and offer their opinion in comparison to the estimate report?
Through Mr. Mayor, I think that's a really good question. We could look at putting in the tender some opportunity to repurpose some of the equipment or materials that are in there. Typically, the contractor includes that recovery cost in their unit pricing. And yes, now that we have a number out there, we're pretty well assured that the numbers are going to be very close to that, even if they can do it for less. I haven't been in the building for quite some time, but I know Dave Baldoni has. Perhaps he can give us an idea, but I'm sure but when you're dealing with mold and asbestos and water damage, anything that you might be able to recover from a renovation project doesn't have a significant amount of value. But we could direct it be repurposed if it can, things like cabinets or things that might be able to be cleaned up and, you know, Habitat for Humanity or Salvation Army, whatever it takes. We could certainly have a look at it.
Good, thank you.
I got Councillor, did Councillor Decker have her hand up?
She did have her hand up, but it has taken it down at the moment.
Hi, I did, Mr. Mayor, but really I was just going to ask sort of the same questions as Councillor O'Hare and echo Councillor D'Angelo's urgency about getting the project started. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dividite.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm totally in favor for this. I happened to be in that area Thursday, so I happened to walk in the building, walked around the building. It's a total gut job. You cannot keep anything in there. We had that building for over 50 years. I think the citizens of Thorold need something new. Unfortunately, in business, you got to spend some money. And I'm thinking 900,000 might be a little short because the price of things are going up like crazy. The outside needs some good work on it. The bricks need work. The roof is shot. everything's shot in that building. So I agree with Henry. We have to move fast on this, but we have to get that building looking beautiful. The citizens of Thorold deserve it. The building is a dump. I walked in there. I know I shouldn't have, but I'm totally for this, and I think Ramonda's plans look great.
Thank you. Councillor Sentence.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The last council remembers we bothered staff to do this. We pestered them to say we need somebody out there at the worst times of their life. We have a perfectly good building. Let's get this going. We asked them to find financing. We asked them to find a way to do this. This does it for me. If there is savings available, great. If not, but this is a very important thing that we've been talking about literally for 4 years and still talking about it now. So I agree with the councillors. We got to get going on this. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Yeah, just one more question to the CFO. Maria, where's the money coming from for this? Thank you.
Through Mr. Mayor, you know, we did this on a preliminary basis, and the actual numbers will come when the tender comes. But what my recommendation would be is that right now you have $60,000 built into the budget for the rental of the trailer. So we would, once the trailer is done, we would take that $60,000 and apply it to servicing the cost of this. But along with that, we're going to probably take about $360,000 out of reserves. So it will be a hit to the reserves and a repurposing of the $60,000 that's presently in the operating levy.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to, again, strongly support this, and we move forward with a reconstruct. If it takes a total gutting, it takes a total gutting. We've done this with other projects here at the city. The senior center is a good example. That was gutted to the studs and then repurposed, and it's a wonderful building. It's going to last a lot longer. When you start picking and choosing what you're fixing, you're picking and choosing what problems you want to deal with. I would rather have a new building. It's going to be good for 20, 30 years without any problems. It's going to be more energy efficient. It's going to be a lot nicer. It's going to have some amenities that the current building didn't have. So it's hard to, if anyone's ever done a rental project, you always run into more problems when you're trying to fix something that's there as opposed to starting sort of from scratch. You're using the bones and moving forward with that. So to me, that's important. And it'll also expedite the project. If you start picking and choosing, you're going to add delays to the project and extra costs. I know the 996 is just a budgeted number through cost estimates. The real number is going to come when we get the tender back and we get bids on it. That's the number that we're going to have to deal with. It may be higher, maybe lower. Usually not lower because they know the budget's 996, so it's going to be higher. Just hopefully no one heard that. But anyways, let's move forward and get this done, and this will be something the citizens of Thorold will be proud of.
Thank you. So we got a mover and a seconder. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Now we move on to PWCS 62-2023 tender award, Broderick Avenue Road Reconstruction Phase 1, tender number 102EN 3001-T2. I need a mover and a seconder, Councillor D'Angelo and Councillor Longo. And I'll turn this over to Jeff Holman, our Director of Public Works and Community Services. And he's going to call on Sean Dunsmore, Manager of Engineering.
Yeah, I can read the recommendation for you, Council. Mr. Mayor, the recommendation is that tender number 102EN 3001 T2 respecting Broderick Avenue Road Reconstruction Phase 1 be awarded to Alpha Beam Excavating Limited at a contract price of $2,117,732, including contingency and excluding HST. And 2, that council approve the extension of the contract for Associated Engineering in the amount of $178,000 for the Phase 1 design and contract administration to be funded from the approved Broderick Road Reconstruction budget. And 3, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the necessary agreements and contracts.
Thank you, and now I'll open the floor up for any questions, and Sean's here, and go ahead, Councillor Sanders.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I just have one question. We're leaving everything the same, right?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I need to know. Appreciate it.
Councillor D'Angelo.
That was my question too, but it's been answered, so the citizens are going to be quite happy. The only question I have is through this tendering process, I know we have one that's going to be awarded it. Is there any penalties for delays? I don't want to see a construction project started and then run on for a very long time. We've had some of these problems in Thorold in the past. Citizens in that area have been duly putting up with a lot. An extended construction time frame would not help the situation. So I know we need to stay on top of that, but is there a penalty if they don't meet certain deadlines? I don't want it to be a secondary job where they're off somewhere else doing something and they come here when they feel like it. So to me, that's very critical because I've seen this in the past, and you get a lower bid, but you get twice the timeline to get it done. So that's not helpful either. If I can get a bit of clarity on that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, in our contract projects, we have what's called a liquidated damage, and we charge them a percentage of the project for every day that they're over the working days of the project.
That's news to my ears because this way they'll keep the project moving forward to get it done. Thank you.
Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to comment. Thanks to staff for picking the beams. They did our septic system after our house burned down, and they're wonderful. So good choice. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Hyde. Go ahead, Councillor Hyde.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Just a question. First off, I was really happy to read all the comments from the residents. They seem very pleased, and that's great news for everyone. I know that they're very fond of the boulevard, as I am as well, and we know there's many, many trees on there that we're going to be saving throughout the renovation. And I know you specifically talked about putting up protective fencing at the drip line of all the trees to make sure that no damage occurs during the construction process. My question is there work that needs to be done underneath the boulevard, or are we safe from not having to dig that up to cause any damage or harm to the trees?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there shouldn't be any damage to the trees that are in decent living shape.
Yeah, excellent.
We should be able to save them.
Okay, I just wasn't sure because when I read the report, it said you will be making all attempts to make sure the trees are left in place and kept safe, but things could happen. That's why I wanted to know if there was actual work in the boulevard. That's fantastic. So I'm looking forward to seeing those protective barriers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, before I call the questions, I want the residents, and there's some of them here tonight, to know how important it is for you to make comment and public engagement, and it showed that your voice was heard. So I just want to tell, not just you, but anybody, that we really do appreciate and listen to the public. We might not always agree at the end of the day, but in this case it worked out, and the project is exactly what the residents wanted. So anyways, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. PWCS 66-2023 St. David's Road Construction Project Update. And can I get a mover and a seconder on this one? Councillor Hanley and Councillor Longo. And again, I'll turn it over to our Director of Public Works and Community Services, Jeff Holman, with his backup, Sean Dunsmore, right behind him.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that council approve the scope change to accommodate the replacement and relocation of underground infrastructure for the St. David's Road Construction Phase 1 project. 2, that council approve additional funding in the amount of $245,538.36 from the sewer reserve for the St. David's Road Construction Phase 1 project. And 3, that council approve additional funding in the amount of $48,128 even from the water reserve for the 2023 capital project for the St. David's Road Construction Phase 1 project.
Okay, and now I'll open the floor for questions. Are there any questions regarding this? Go ahead, Councillor DeAngelo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's good that we're keep moving this project going forward. There was just I just want to make sure one of the citizens that lives on St. David's, that there are issues addressed. They have some sightline issues. I don't have their number of their house immediately here, but it's right adjacent to Parkdale Drive. There's hedges there, and I think with the road widening, it's putting their exiting out of their driveway at risk with those hedges there. So maybe staff can look at working to get that issue resolved with the contractor and with the neighbor that has the hedges, just because it's now become a sightline issue.
Go ahead, Sean.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, our project manager has been out there discussing options for rectifying that situation.
Okay,
already.
excellent. I'm glad staff's on top of that. Thank you very much.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Oh, sorry, Councillor Decker, did you have a comment to make?
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Okay, thank you. I just noticed your
The
hand.
video's not working.
If I miss you, make sure you let me know, please.
Don't worry, I will.
Okay, thank you. PWCS 67, 2023, museum budget request. Can I get a mover and a seconder for this report? Councillor Sentence and Councillor O'Hare. And again, I'll turn this over to Jeff Holman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that, 1, the council approve the allocation of funds in the amount of $520, HST included, for the purchase of 2 window air conditioning units from the encumbrance reserve for the second floor storage area at Allenbrook Community Center. And 2, that council approve the request from the Thorold Museum in the amount of $9,220 for planned operating expenses to be funded from the 2023 community grants budget. And 3, that the Thorold Museum be requested to submit their application for funding for the 2024 budget under the annual community grants process.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Notice as a motion, Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, notice of motion on food security to come at a future council meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd like to bring a notice of motion regarding a digital notice board here in the city at a future council meeting.
Can you repeat that? Sorry,
A digital notice board.
Okay, thank you.
Or billboard. Thanks.
Councillor Dividitis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to provide notice of a motion concerning 30 Carlson Street North, McMillan Field, and a request from the DSBN to use the park for our turf grass field. Mr. Mayor, additionally, I believe this matter is time sensitive, and as there are additional matters of negotiation to consider, I would like to move this item be considered this evening in closed session in accordance with Section 11.2 of the Municipal Act, waiving the notice of requirements.
So, Mr. Mayor, if council would like to deal with this matter tonight, Councillor DeVitis has moved that we waive the procedural bylaw in accordance with the notice provisions of Section 11.2 through 11, or to actually hear it under closed session, and we are prepared to do that if council wishes to do so.
So first we need
a mover, or we need a seconder to the motion to waive the bylaw. If that passes with a 2/3 majority, when we move into closed, we will include that reason for going into closed.
Okay. Are you seconding that, Councillor Sen? Okay. So we need a 2/3 majority to move this forward in closed session. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Okay. I have motions, scheduling for public meetings held in accordance with the Planning Act.
Motion, you still on notice as a motion, or?
Yeah, I had the three here. Did,
Okay, all right.
yeah, I didn't have you on here, that's why I didn't. Go ahead.
No, I wanted to put a notice of motion forward for the next meeting in regards to filing a complaint with the Upper Canada Law Society and the way I was treated in the last council meeting by the Integrity Commissioner and the personal attack that he made against me. And I'm gonna put a motion on the floor at the next meeting in regards to such.
Thank you. Motions. Scheduling for public meetings held in accordance with the Planning Act, and I'll call on Councillor Longo for his motion concerning the scheduling of public meetings held in accordance with the Planning Act. And do we have a seconder on that? I have Councillor D'Angelo. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last meeting, I brought this up as a notice of motion, and we got into a bit of a discussion on it, and that was my intention, but we waited till tonight because that's the proper way to do it. My concern was having the public meetings scheduled for 5:30. It seemed it was a problem for councilors to attend and for members of the public to attend, being at 5:30. I've had a few people say they couldn't make meetings. We've noticed some councilors weren't here for meetings. Tonight seemed to be actually decent, although there were not the full slate of councilors, but we did have a good public turnout. So what I'm looking for here is just some discussion with maybe the clerk and councilors on how we're going to move forward. Do we want to keep this status quo, or do we want to move back to the way it was? And it was changed without any real notice to council. So that's what my motion is tonight.
And did you want to speak on that before I put up?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. Through you to members of council. So what's on the floor at moment as proposed by Councillor Longo is that staff be directed to include future public meetings held under the Planning Act during the regular scheduled council meetings after presentations and delegations. So that would mean once we've gone through our regular presentations and delegation sections, at that point a public meeting would be held. Where staff have questions and where we put it back to council to potentially amend this or increase the direction to staff are situations like we have coming up for the next council meeting. Currently for July 11th, tomorrow, we have to issue notice for those public meetings, and we have 2. So if we have a short public meeting, they can last as long as 15 minutes. 2 of those, we could be 30 minutes adding to the length of your council meeting. If they're anything like tonight, you could be extending your council meeting by an hour or 2. The other option that we could look at are situations where we know it might be a more controversial meeting. We could look at other evenings, such as the Tuesday on the week following council, or if there are consecutive public meetings needing to be held in the same night, again, that could be the direction to move it to the following. There may be some need to provide some discretion for staff in this particular area, and I'll certainly allow the Director of Development Services if he has anything further to comment as we move through this process, or Manoj himself. But again, what staff are looking for are direction beyond this, because we don't want to, just for the purposes of meeting management, we want to ensure we can get through a council meeting if we have multiple meetings or a more controversial agenda.
And now, but this doesn't say that. This says we're doing it on council.
At present, Mr. Mayor, this says the meetings will be held during council meetings.
That's correct.
As it's worded.
Go ahead, Councillor O'Hara. I seen you had your hand up.
I'm not too sure if I fully understood what Matthew was saying there. Were you also saying that we could put all the public meetings together on a separate evening once a month as opposed to prior to our council meeting? Is that what you were saying?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, in a sense, yes. So we have 2 meetings coming up, and if we were to pass this tonight, both meetings would need to be included in the council agenda on July 11th. Another option, if we're not including them in the council agenda, but we also would not like to hold these meetings at 5:30, we could hold public meetings on the Tuesdays following a council meeting, so the next week at 6:30, the same way you would a council meeting. The question being, it may have concerns that Councillor Longo has raised with regards to achieving full attendance from all councillors or members of the public. But it would solve the issue of lengthening the council meeting. It would also solve the issue of having it at 5:30.
Go ahead, Councillor DeAngelo.
I'm comfortable with moving the public meetings after the presentations and delegations. Sometimes the public meetings will be 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes they're a little longer. Those are council, we only meet basically every 3 weeks on a council meeting. So one of those is going to be a little busier. I don't have an issue with that. I'm opposed to keeping them at the 5:30 because what happens, the attendance is somewhat, it's been getting better, but it was poor at one point in time because people don't see everyone here from a council perspective. Also, it was harder for the general public to come at those meetings. So I think by moving it after delegations and presentations would be the best. There's always going to be controversial stuff throughout our agenda. We just, as a collective group, have to recognize those evenings are going to be a little bit more work. But to throw another night on, I don't know if that's going to be helpful in the situation too. So that just means staff's preparing for more meetings as opposed to shorter meeting dates. There'll be more meeting dates as opposed to now stretching it out over 2 as opposed to 1. So that might pose some problems. But I know they're usually planning meetings and there's some urgency with them. So if a meeting has to be held because of timing issues on an off Tuesday, I would be able to live with that. But if we could schedule maybe the next few on council, see how they roll, and if we find that they're taking up quite a bit of time, then look at some mechanism of moving it to a different option. So that's where I'm set. So my long word, but I'm in favor of putting it on council nights and seeing how it goes. And then if it seems to be dragging the rest of the agenda down because of time constraints, then look at the option of going to the off Tuesday.
Thank you.
That's what I'm supporting.
Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Matthew, is there any way to limit the time? Or
Through you, Mr. Mayor, unfortunately not. With a public meeting, individuals don't have to register. They can just show up. They're limited to only 5 minutes as opposed to 10, but there's really no limit in the number of people that could speak.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor D'Angelo, and we should maybe give it a try and see how it goes. One thing that I'm really adamant about is to make sure that we get the information regarding the presentations or public meetings early enough so we have time to fully understand what's going to be before us. That will certainly help the public sessions move quicker if we know 100% everything in advance. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Council, the reason why we have brought it at 30 because in the past these public meetings was taking up a lot of time of council, so we thought to be more efficient to bring it at 5:30. However, if council wishes to bring it back to 6:30, there's no problem from staff perspective. It's all council wishes how they want to deal with it, and if they think at the later date that we can have it at a separate Tuesday, we can do that as well. So it's no issues from staff perspective. It is just the council wishes how they want to proceed. Thanks.
Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just make my comment. I'd prefer it to be at 6:30. And mainly it's because of attendance. And I'm not trying to say this in a negative way. Some councillors can't get here at 5:30. It's not fair to them. But what's even more important is it's not fair to the public if it's at 5:30 and it's difficult for them to get to here. They're the ones we have the meetings for. They're not for us. They're public meetings. So I think 6:30, it's always been that time. It's more convenient, and let's see how it goes. If it becomes an issue, we'll go from there, but my preference would be 6:30.
Thank you. Okay, so we got a mover and seconder, and the motion, you've seen the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Statement by councillors. Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to briefly speak about the tax increase on our municipality perpetrated by the regional budget, spending increases. And I just feel that I'd like to give them a message that this is unacceptable going forward. And I just want to cite where I'm citing my information from tonight. The C.D. Howe Institute is an independent, non-for-profit research institute whose mission is to raise living standards by fostering economically sound public policies. Widely considered to be Canada's most influential think tank, the Institute is a trusted source of essential policy intelligence, distinguished by research that is non-partisan, evidence-based, and subject to definitive expert review. The Institute's research is national in scope, and they host policy events across the country. So here's what they say. When it comes to, and this is for 2022, when it comes to fiscal accountability, the Niagara region is one of the country's poorest performing municipalities. New analysis from leading think tank C.D. Howe Institute suggests in its annual study on the clarity, completeness, and transparency of municipal budget making and financial reporting, C.D. Howe gave Niagara Regional Authority a C+, bad enough for the bottom half of its 2022 list. And it goes on to say, all governments should present financial information that meets high standards as transparency, usefulness, and timeliness, reads the report, released earlier this spring. As this report card on the budgets and annual reports of 32 major Canadian municipalities reveals, many cities do not. And all 17 of the 32 ranked municipalities earned grades higher than Niagara. Now, and it goes on to finish, Niagara's C+ showing was actually one of the better scores in recent years. In 2019, the region earned a D, 2020 a B, and 2021 a D+. It should be noted that Regional Council approved its 2023 budget at the end of February, well over 2 months later than it was supposed to. So, so at least for timeliness, Niagara can expect an even worse score in next year's budget report. I've gotten many calls about the regional portion of their tax bill. Mine went up $500. In this day and age with runaway inflation, I think the region's got to figure out ways to either increase revenue through without taxation, or they have to stop. To me, some of their spending is frivolous, but that's my opinion. And Mr. Mayor, I know you, Councillor Whalen, is on the budget committee, and you have some influence there. If you can, I don't know if we should send a letter just voicing our displeasure, but I'm very displeased, as were many residents who reached out to me about their several $100 tax increases. And that's my statement, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor DeRose. I'll call on Councillor Dividitis for his statement.
Mr. Mayor, just a point of order. Because I know Councillor DeRose brought up a motion in the past regarding our councillor coming to give us regular updates from the region. As part of that, can we have a budget presentation from the councillor? I know when I was regional councillor, I would come to everyone and do a budget presentation.
We'll ask him to do that when he comes. It's well taken.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Dividitis.
Mine is regarding the hate stickers. I just wanted to start by saying how Thorold represents diversity, equality, and the actions of a few people do not in any way represent the citizens of Thorold and this amazing city. I want to thank staff for their leadership and their quick response to this act of hate. And I just have a little letter from Pride Niagara. On behalf of Pride Niagara, we acknowledge the City of Thorold for their quick and efficient response, removing recent stickers of advertising hate and homophobia throughout the city. Working with citizens and leading by example. We thank the City of Thorold for not only recognizing our 2S LGBTQ+ community by holding themselves accountable for safety, equality, and the growth of all Thorold citizens. Sincerely, Pride Niagara.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dividitis.
Just on that note, I believe that the city of region has addressed the investigator.
Go ahead, Jason. I know I asked, I did ask that the regional police be involved.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I can confirm, yes, it is under investigation by Niagara Regional.
Thank you. I'm glad to see we've taken that route.
Thank you. Okay. And I understand Councillor Hanley also has a statement by council. However, due to the confidential nature of the statement, it will be heard in closed session. Okay. So, Councillor DeRoe.
I thought I had another one that I wanted to
No,
share.
that's it. That's all I had.
Can I, you know what I'm talking about, Matthew?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, I believe it was a notice of motion, however, but you can correct me if...
No, because you said it was time sensitive and I could bring it up.
Could you refresh us on the matter, Councillor?
Yeah, it's in regards to sending a letter to the feds in the province and Corrections Canada to keep Paul Bernardo in maximum security.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, that would be a notice of motion as it's a letter, but you can ask if you were to receive that notice of motion. I'll leave it to the mayor whether to accept it at this time. But it would require again, the 2/3 majority to hear the actual motion tonight.
Yeah, the reason being, Mr. Mayor, that was close to home for me. I was coaching the Holy Cross soccer team when this all happened. I drove by that church as Kristen French was being kidnapped, not knowing, and all the players on our team went looking around in the Port Dalhousie area, ironically, and then my sister was one of her teachers. So I just feel that any statement we can make is a statement for good against evil. Thank you.
So you want to waive the procedure you'll second that? We need 2/3 vote to waive the procedure. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Now, the notice of motion is to send a letter, correct?
Correct, Mr. Mayor.
So it's to send a letter to it's a federal issue.
Right, yeah, to the feds. Well, I would just send one to the province also in Corrections Canada, but I'll leave it up to you. If you think the province doesn't need one.
To send it to the correct, to where it needs to go.
Okay,
Okay?
perfect.
And
I appreciate
are
that.
you seconding that as well, Councillor?
Will that also be distributed to our local MPs so they're aware of it?
We can include that in it. Can include that in it as well. Okay?
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Closed session. Before I ask a mover and a seconder to go in closed session, I would like to remind you of your obligations respecting closed session. Those who are participating electronically in the closed session must ensure that no other person is in the location from which they are taking part in the meeting or make appropriate arrangements so that any other persons cannot see or hear any of the confidential deliberations taking place. If this is not possible, you must withdraw from the meeting until it is reconvened in open session. I need a mover and a seconder before I read this. I have Councillor O'Hare and a seconder. I have Councillor Hanley. That council do now move into closed session for the purposes of receiving information of a confidential nature respecting a matter respecting the advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege under Section 239(1)(f) of the Municipal Act 2001, Council's Code of Conduct. 2, a matter respecting a proposed disposition of land by the municipality under Section 239(1)(c) of the Municipal Act 2001, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be implied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality under Section 239(1)(k) of the Municipal Act 2001, 20 Carlton Street North, Macmillan Park. 3, a matter respecting personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, under Section 239(b) of the Municipal Act 2001, confidential statement by councillor concerning staff. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, so we will now move into closed session, and does Nella have to go in on a different link?
Just to confirm, Councillor, I've sent you the link to the closed session.